They have a combined 12 years in the National Football League. They combined for 65 career sacks, 232 tackles, 1 Pro Bowl selection, and 1 Employee of the Month award.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
It's Train and Grose on the All AZ Podcast Network.
Welcome in another edition of Train and Grose. We're coming to you from Train and Grose Studios in downtown Phoenix at Train Station. Damn, it's hot in here today, B-Train.
Yeah, it's a little toasty. I got ice. Ice is being made, so.
And you brought pretzels.
Yeah, I bought pretzels, and you can, in the background, you'll hear the ice dropping. So, we can.
I try to take care of you best I can, man. It's 100 and forever out there. Come on.
It is hot. But we're glad to be back. Training camp's going on in the NFL. We'll get to that talk in a little bit. It's,
Preseason's back.
Preseason, your love for preseason football. I used to call it on the radio, and people would always correct me. It says exhibition. I don't know why the NFL gets to call it preseason. Every other sport will be at least up front with you and say this is an exhibition.
You and I went through this. You said, when we were doing the Saturday morning show together, you said it was that way the NFL doesn't feel as bad for charging you full price for a exhibition game if they call it preseason. Yeah. That was your take.
So if you have a ticket to a preseason game,
or if you're a season ticket holder and you have to pay,
you got to buy that package.
Yeah.
How much? What's the face value of the ticket coming up?
The same as week 1.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a farce.
Farcical. Big time. There's no arguing that.
It's exhibition.
There's no arguing.
Baseball
that.
will tell you.
Hold up.
Way.
Yeah.
Baseball, it's exhibition. Exhibition baseball live from Arizona.
But they don't even play at their regular stadium, though, so it looks a little different.
That's true.
And as popular as it's getting, those tickets are getting pretty. See a lineup to go to a Cubs game.
I'd rather be at a.
Only for certain teams, though.
Cubs, though.
Yeah, that stadium sells out basically.
But that's the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs are one of those.
Oh, yeah.
teams.
If you got the A's and the Brewers playing in Maryville, not so much.
Right.
So I guess it's a market-driven thing. Mm-hmm. But so we'll get into some of that. But front and center is the Olympics. They're going on from Tokyo, for the most part on tape delay, unless you get up very early in the morning. And for me, growing up in Michigan, eastern Michigan, right across the river from Detroit to Windsor, Ontario, was when I was a kid. I remember you could flip back and forth, and you could catch the Olympics on CBC Channel 9 out of Windsor.
Right.
And that was kind of a different and a unique take on it because, no matter where the Olympics were back in the day, they were packaged up and they were delivered to you because that's the only place you could get it.
Right.
And it was cool. It was Jim McKay, the Olympic theme, and all that.
Yep.
And it felt a little less commercial back in the day than it is now.
Yeah.
And that comes with the territory when NBC's paying I don't know how many gazillion dollars for marketing rights that you got to pay for it somehow.
And it's been a little bit disastrous because it is a year late.
It is a year late.
Yep.
So. But I give the organizers in Tokyo a ton of credit. When you have seen the events, and again, most of the time on tape delay, it seems like the with the exception of the empty seats, the venues are wonderful. The setup is nice. The city looks clean, and it's been, I know, unseasonably hot there, but it looks like it's been a very well-run Olympics from a distance. You haven't heard any stories about this going wrong or that going wrong. So from that standpoint, I get it. And then the individual competitors have been remarkable. The stories you and I were texting back and forth a couple times this week about things that happened. Something tying back to our last podcast. Edwin Moses is in the mix on some of this. It's been remarkable, but the ratings are down. The ratings are way down.
Mike, I gotta be honest. I have not gotten into the Olympics quite like I used to. When I used to watch the Olympics, I was glued to every single competition, every single event I wanted to watch. And this year, it's really only been track. Like the only thing I've really had an interest in is track. Like they haven't really even shown the basketball games. When you talk about the USA going for gold in the rematch against France, who beat them in the first round, the group round. And I don't know if I'm even going to be interested in watching it because you're getting the updates first thing in the morning because of the time difference. And there's nothing you can really do about that. I think NBC is doing the best job that they can. Yeah. But when you already know the results, why am I going to devote all of that time to watching this particular event when I already know how it's going to happen? It's like going to the movies and watching a movie you've seen already. Like,
That's where you hear the term spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Like you literally have to, if there's something you want to see without knowing the event, you have to shut it down. You can't have your phone on because if you're on Twitter, Facebook,
updates.
whatever, you get updates all the time.
Yeah,
if you turn the TV on, they're running the scroll. So you can't hide from it.
In the hoops, to your point, B-Train, they put it on the damn Peacock app. So it made it hard to find anyway. If you don't have a Peacock account, which I don't.
Right.
So you have to go to the damn app to watch the men's basketball team.
Well, the other thing, too, and you can see, and one of the things that they've added, which I think is very cool because the families, because of the COVID still going on, they can't travel. Mm-hmm. They have cameras and look-ins to the watch parties in people's hometown or down in Florida. I know they got a big one going. So, that human interest side of it. But there was a pole vaulter, and for the life of me, cannot remember her name. She's from Ohio, some small town in Ohio. She won the gold medal earlier this week.
Yep.
And they showed the family gathered in her small town in Ohio. There's a tavern that everybody visits. And so the whole town gathered, 100 people in this tavern at like 4:30 in the morning, Ohio time, to watch this woman win the gold medal. A remarkable story. And again, the thing that I liked about it, because you already knew it, was that angle.
Right.
Let's see how the town and the community rallies around her. There's a swimmer last week from Seward, Alaska. Mm-hmm. She was not expected to medal. She won a gold in an event. I don't recall what event it was. And they had the entire city in the high school gym in Seward, Alaska to watch this. Those are the types of things that NBC has to do to kind of hook you in because, again, you know what's going to happen.
Mike, I'm gonna ask this, and I'm gonna pose this question for both you guys. And I hadn't really thought about this until you just said that, and then I had some of my own thoughts about the basketball team. And it just dawned on me like this. I think the Olympics have gotten too old for me. The Olympics used to be college kids. Mm-hmm. It used to be 20-somethings. Mm-hmm. It used to be non-professionals out there competing, and it was the best non-professionals in the world. But now, as you look at the Olympics, it's very commonplace to see a 32-year-old, a mother, a husband, a father. You know what I mean? Like you see these older people competing in the Olympics, and I think to some degree that's kind of lost it for me because I enjoyed it in the 80s, like 84, when you had Jordan and the crew fresh out of college going and winning a gold medal and beating some of those pro teams in other countries, because it wasn't the best of the Americans, but it was a team that was good enough to win. And now when you have these, do you even refer to them as Dream Team? Or, I mean, it's not Redeem Team. It's just like it's like pros versus pros now. You get the best pros in each country to go out and play against. It's almost like an extended NBA. And I think to some degree, it's just there's something about that lure that has lost me. Like I can't quite put a finger on it, but I just think that it has to be something based on age that I just disconnect now with watching older athletes out there competing.
And I agree with that, especially this year, the way things ended in the NBA and dudes are getting on a plane together to go meet up with the team.
They just played in the finals, and they got to go be teammates now.
And they're sharing a flight.
Wow.
Going over to Tokyo. And I remember, and I wish I could tell you who to give credit for this, that as wonderful as the Dream Team story was at the time, and I think I told you guys we weren't recording it. A friend of mine worked at UC San Diego, and he was giving me updates way back in the day. And it was a cool story.
Sure.
But there was a school of thought that this was an overreaction to what had happened previously
against
Russia, where this is our sport, and therefore we're going to do whatever we have to do to win it. And I think we're there now. And you look at how
but it's not just basketball, though.
But I was going to say, and you look at team sports about, because individual stuff we can get to in a minute, but when you look at the team sports that are there, you've got WNBA and NBA.
Sure.
You've got hockey in the wintertime.
Baseball
now. They're not sending major leaguers over.
Right.
You basically have a glorified minor league team over there, but they're still professionals, to your point. WNBA is sending the equivalent of their dream team over. Hockey, one of the big things that they always try to figure out in the collective bargaining agreement is, Are we going to support the Olympic movement and let NHL players play? So
and postpone the season
and build in an Olympic break essentially.
Yeah.
So that's kind of overwhelmed and overtaken these team sports. And the Miracle on Ice would not be the Miracle on Ice if it was a bunch of NHL players doing it.
No,
it would not be. And that, you know,
they wouldn't make a movie out of it. You're saying?
I'm saying that probably wouldn't be a movie, right? You know, they're even criticizing, you know, the selection of the coaches with this now. You know, when they were struggling in the games leading up to the Olympics, they were criticizing Greg Popovich, saying, you know, this should not be just a coronation to give it to the oldest NBA coach that wants to go over there. So there's a lot of criticism of what you do and how you go about it. And I don't know how you unwind it, because in the team sports, I don't disagree with you.
Sure.
And we can talk about the individual events, and I kind of have a different opinion on that because of the sports that they are for the most part. And a lot of these, not all of them, but a lot of them are, you're not racing somebody else. You're racing a clock to get into a track competition.
Sure.
And if you're Allison Felix, spoiler alert, and you're 35, 32, however old Allison Felix is, and after you have your first child, if you can pull it together and qualify for the Olympics, then more power to you. So I don't have a problem with the 32-year-old Allison Felix.
No, but I do, though, because I don't know if I really want to watch a mother, and I know that sounds bad, but I want to watch amateur athletes. Like, the one thing that I used to love about the Olympics was that it was amateur athletes going out there and representing their country before they cashed in and made it big in the big-time sports and the big-time leagues that they would eventually play a part in. I just don't know I can't quite put my finger on it, Mike, but I know age has something to do with it. It's something about a 30-something-year-old going out there and representing their country that just doesn't jive with me like it used to. I mean, if I saw guys fresh out of college, I would be much more interested in how they did as opposed to, okay, we got the best of the best. All right, we're going to go send those guys over there to dominate. It may be closer than what it was because the rest of the world is catching up, but yet it's still all about Team USA.
Well, the flip side of it then is if you don't like the 35-year-old out there, you had to love 17-year-old from Florida in the 200s, Arian Knighton.
He competed, got fourth.
And he's going to be a senior in high school next year.
How about that? How about if he'd have medaled and he had to go back and run high school track? I mean, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No, I guess it's the balance. And, you know, whether you're 17 or 27, you know, you're out there in a sport like track, in a sport like swimming, in you know, if you're out there running a marathon, doing the triathlon, I'm thinking of these individual sports.
Sure.
You know, you go out and you compete. You have a trials. We take all comers.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I don't know what the process is, but, you know, you can, if you're running track, you go and you get invited, or you have I know how it works in swimming because Julia, my daughter, used to swim competitively.
Right.
And there's cuts everywhere along the line. Like,
right.
You swim in high school sports here, high school swimming here, you know what it takes to qualify for the state tournament.
Right.
And I imagine NCAA, there's NCAA cuts.
Correct.
And then, you know, if you're going to get to the USA trials, you better swim your freestyle in this time or better, and you're invited. So if you're a 17-year-old running 200 and you can do it, sky's the limit for this kid, you know. But if you're Allison Felix, and I looked it up, 35 years old, she did it too after having a child, and I don't have a problem with that.
So Mike, so here's that rub then. If a 17-year-old can go out and do it, and turn and basically be a professional, because he's basically a professional out there.
Yeah.
Then why can't 17-year-old football players go play in the NFL?
Yeah.
Why can't 17-year-olds go play in the NBA?
And again,
17-year-olds can play golf. 17-year-olds can play tennis. 17-year-olds can do soccer, but you can't do basketball. You can't do football.
Well, the argument for football, and I somewhat get it, would be a 17-year-old's body.
Give him a chance to fail.
Is it physically built enough to take a hit from you?
Give him a chance to fail.
You know,
it's his right to fail, though.
It's true.
And there are exceptions, because I remember a Herschel Walker coming out of high school.
That's true.
I remember Adrian Peterson coming out of college or out of high school. Leonard Fournette was a grown man coming out of high school. So there is going to be outliers, but for the most part, they're not ready.
And I think in a sport like track, where you have the ability to make money.
And there's no contact.
But you have the ability to make money. This young man, from what they were telling, and again, I could be proven wrong here, he's still maintaining his amateur status, much like a golfer. To your point, like you'll see some of the big tournaments where there will be college golfers in the Masters, but they maintain their amateur status, meaning they could win it or place somewhere. They just don't take the prize money, but they're competing. They're out there competing as amateurs.
I tell you what, if I go out there and I beat those pros, I'm keeping that money.
Well, that's
there
fine.
Ain't no way in hell
right.
I'm giving that money.
And that's
back,
fine
because I earned it.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. And then you say, all right, I'm not going back to Notre Dame to play golf. I'm on the PGA Tour from this point forward.
Yeah,
I get it. But I think that's the difference, albeit a subtle difference, because this kid, they said, look, he maintained his amateur status, headed back to, I think it was Hillsborough High School, just outside of Tampa, Florida, for his senior year. Like he's going to get back to Florida just in time to start school after finishing 4th
in the 200.
In the 200.
Wow.
Right? So
good for him.
But I think it goes back to the whole NFL, the whole Olympic thing that you started this with.
Yeah.
I just think for me, it's a victim of the era that we live in, and I don't mean that in a bad way. You have so many ways to get access to information.
Yes.
And, you hear it on the newscast, you hear it. Spoiler alert, if you don't want to know who won the USA men's basketball game, shut your TV off now. We're going to give you the score in 3, 2, 1, go.
But it's not just the TV. It's your phone. It's
you got to
social media.
You got to lock it down.
You
can't do anything.
Yeah, you got to basically become a hermit.
Or you be at work. There was somebody asked me, and I want to go back to this race the other night because I think there are still things to love about the Olympics.
Okay.
And that 400 men's hurdles is one of them.
400 women's hurdles too.
Well, both of them, but I think specifically you and I were talking about the men's, and it took you back because you reminded me, and we did talk about it on the podcast. You said, look, Edwin Moses, my guy. This is him and Roger King.
My idols.
Right?
My idols.
And then you go out and see it, and if you Google him now, he's weighing in on that.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, he's like, it's amazing to see the improvements. He said, but even with the improvements, they ain't that far away from me where I was.
No.
So, he's still got that line in the sand,
still competitive.
that prideful nature, which
right.
got him where he went. Didn't lose a race for 10 years. Right?
How about that?
Right? And fun fact, I didn't even know this. He went to Morehouse College in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And when he arrived at Morehouse College in Atlanta, there was not a track on campus.
How about that?
He got a scholarship, academic scholarship.
Yeah.
And he had to go run at a high school. Fast forward, the campus now in Atlanta, the name of the track is Edwin Moses Track and Field Stadium
the
at
house that
Morehouse
he built.
College.
And it's only right because he built that. I mean, before him, there was nothing.
Right.
Literally
nothing. And then he went out there and did it. But so there's still things to like when you see that race the other night.
But is it enough to keep you engaged the entire time? Because the Olympics are basically 2 weeks, Mike. Have you been engaged the entire 2 weeks?
Oh, no, far from it. No. And I think we're all more or less on the same page here. And I think it's up to, again, NBC to figure out if you're going to pay all that money to figure out how you engage the viewers. Because, again, what you and the three of us are talking about, if I'm sitting in New York City, I know it. If I'm sitting in Minneapolis, I know it. And if I'm sitting in Los Angeles, I know it. Every time zone. I think I covered them all.
29 million viewers on average is what it was at this point in 2016 at Rio de Janeiro. 16.8 is what they're getting right now.
And there was so much more live. There was less internet.
Yeah.
Not less internet, but less ways to get things on the internet.
Right.
And Rio is essentially the eastern time zone of the United States. So you didn't have to watch if you're in Ohio at 4 a.m.
Right.
It might be a little bit earlier than you're used to, but at least you could see stuff live when it's in Rio.
So at this point, they were averaging 29 million a night.
Yep.
They're only getting 16.8 right now.
Because everybody, you don't need to see it.
Yeah, you already know.
Yeah.
And then it's just if you're just a hardcore fan and you just want to see it, just to see it unfold, but you already know the outcome. I mean, you're not even watching the same way.
Well, and I remember last night, two things went on. The women's game started late Phoenix time. And so, everybody was out there, hey, tune to whatever NBC property if you want to see the women. So if you're on the East Coast, you ain't seeing that because you went to bed already.
Yep.
And then my household is a volleyball household, in case you're wondering.
They were kicking ass now.
And the women
sand and regular volleyball.
the women indoor is what I tune in for, and they won 3-0.
Yep.
But again, that was on. It started at 8 o'clock ish Arizona time, and didn't end till late on the East Coast. So if you're a 12-year-old volleyball fan or a parent of a 12-year-old volleyball fan,
school starting
in Boston or New York or whatever, you didn't see that live.
No, because they got school tomorrow.
So to Sean's point, you're not counted in the ratings.
Mike, and Sean, another aspect of it is we haven't fared very well. America as a whole, we have not dominated the Olympics like we are accustomed to dominating. We don't lead in gold medals. We lead in overall medals, but there's a lot of second and third place finishes, and I think a lot of people get turned off when we aren't winning everything. And I know that's not good because you're talking about the best in the world, and other countries are allowed to be better. But when the U.S. does not win, it's not as interesting.
And I've got mixed feelings about that, and I will back you up on that, B-Train, and go into the handy-dandy phone because you can get information at a moment's notice. Mm-hmm. As of right now, the U.S. has 99 medals, China next at 79, but China has 36 medals. Gold medals, excuse me, to 31 for the U.S. And the other fact, and I think watching it, again, not locked in, but watching it here or there, Mike Tirico has done a wonderful job.
Yes.
Like Mike Tirico. And when they were getting out of it, they did the scoreboard, Olympic medal scoreboard, had the top 5 up there. But then he said, this is the most countries that have won a medal in the Olympics ever.
And I think that's good.
And I think that's a good news story.
Yeah.
When there was a track event, and I can't remember what it was or who it was, when he says, this man just won a medal, and he's going back to Colombia as the first ever winner of an Olympic medal in his country's history. And if you look at
I want to say Italy, right?
No, the one last night was Colombia. But it could be, look, if you're winning medals for the first time, it could be a lot of countries. So I think that part of it, if you look at making it a global stage, which the Olympics are, I think that's a nice side note. But to your point about Americans, I think we've gotten to the point where if you win anything other than gold, it's a loss. And I want to ask you about the treatment, and I use that word intentionally, that Simone Biles received.
Oh,
because
awful.
I think that really puts that argument right in the spotlight. The way she was treated,
not knowing all the facts,
I think is unconscionable.
Absolutely. Even if her aunt didn't die, the way that she was treated in the midst of that, because she got what they call the twisties or the whatever it is.
Yep.
You're talking about life and death. If you're twisting and twirling in the air, you're putting yourself in harm's way. And if you don't have that sense of balance, you could do major damage to yourself. So there's nothing wrong with Simone Biles taking care of herself personally and doing what's best for her. And for people to come out and say she quit or she is selfish, you damn right she's selfish because she's trying to live. And I'm not putting my life on the line for anybody else, especially talking about Team USA or anything, because are they going to pay my medical bills if I get hurt, if I get injured? Are these same yahoos and dumbasses on Twitter going to come and help me rehab? Are they going to do anything for me once that program is over, once the Olympics is over? Absolutely not. So they can stay in their mother's basements and keep spewing that hate on social media because they've got a platform and they want to tag her just so they can get, that shine. You know what I mean? If you will. And to me, it just makes absolutely no sense.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Well, and the only people that should have had any issue with her whatsoever, and were clearly the people that were giving her their blessing, was her teammates.
The teammates.
Like, who cares what we think?
But they understand what that could be.
And they got it. And they get it. So, like, if you go back to when the day she removed herself from competition, she went. She had that weird vault, didn't go right. She goes into the back for a while, stretches out, just tries to get right, comes back out, talks to her teammates before going off to the side and being the head cheerleader for the squad, if you will, just removing herself from competition. The only people that should have had an issue at all
were those four.
Would have been somebody on that floor with her.
Those four.
And who cares what we think?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they're good with it, why aren't you good with it?
And she actually had the courage to come back.
Yep.
And medal.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about getting a story wrong and completely wrong. There should be at least 1,000 apologies on TV as well as social media in reference to Simone Biles.
And I think this all falls under the same kind of umbrella we've been talking about. Why are the ratings for the Olympics down? There's just so much information and so many ways to sit in your basement and absorb information on the one hand, absorb content from all kinds of different outlets, and then at the same time put out this nonsense that Simone Biles was subjected to throughout the course of her time there. And I think to me that's part of the bigger issue for me. Like, and I don't know, we talked about this and you got out before the internet and social media.
Yeah,
like
before
it was
Twitter and Instagram and all that.
It was just launching at the time.
Yep.
But what professional athletes are subjected to now,
what they're willing to subject themselves to.
And it's a two-way street. Absolutely. You put yourself out there in 2021, you have to expect that it's out there. But to the other one is, what do they call it? The keyboard heroes, like,
keyboard courage, man.
Yeah, sitting behind a fake name and a fake profile picture.
And they're it's clout chasing. That's the word I was looking for. Clout chasing.
I got a picture of my old dog as my profile picture, but
Wow.
you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh, Ray.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's 2021 in a nutshell right there. Like, and the other part of that, I love when you see people that are truly supportive, in this case of Simone Biles, they circle the wagons in her defense. And
No
Sean
doubt.
brought it up, the teammates, and they showed it. Simone Biles was sitting in the front row cheering like she
coulda
was the
easily
biggest
left.
fan.
She
She
coulda
could have
left.
gotten a plane and left.
Yeah.
She was in the front row
Could have
cheering.
sat up top like Kawhi.
Sat up
Wow.
top like Kawhi in a boot.
Wow.
And the other one, I saw an interview with Michael Phelps, who's been very open about his mental health issues that he went through when he was competing, and said, look, he was getting emotional talking about it. And I don't know, I mean, I'm sure he knows Simone Biles, because when you use the term among the greatest Olympic athletes ever, they're both in the conversation.
2016, they were as
Right.
big a profile athlete as anybody.
So whether or not they're friends or not, I don't know, but they are definitely know each other and are very aware. Like, he was on with Mike Tirico, visibly upset to the point where I thought he was going to break down, talking
Right.
about how unfair this was and not knowing what athletes like him and Simone Biles went through to get to where they are. Because nobody cares about swimming for 3 years and 11 months at a time. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
3 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks. Let's
2
just
weeks.
call it what it is.
And Michael Phelps was in a pool, and great stories about that, consuming 35,000 calories a day just to stay in shape,
Wow.
with the way he was working out. And for Simone Biles to do things that are not humanly possible, off a vault, off a floor exercise, off of parallel bars, whatever. She's doing things that if you look at it, we talk about the difference between 84 and 2020, 21. If you did a side-by-side of Simone Biles when she was winning gold to back in 84, it's superhuman what that woman does. And for them to put that out there like that, it's wrong.
And not to mention, Mike, we can't even touch on the fact that she was involved in all of that sexual misconduct that was going on. She's the last one that was part of that. And for her to even compete, even in 2016, with that weight, with that heaviness, with that burden, Mike, and then to still come back and do it again, and then receive the type of reception that she got, it really is sad. And the phrase that I keep coming back to is content out of context. All of this content is being consumed, and then it's being taken out of context.
Fair point. No, that's a good point. All right, there you go. That's as close as you're going to get to an Olympic breakdown from us.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I said, for me, again,
Go Team USA, huh?
Go Team USA, fly the flag. But for me, like I said, it's, both my daughters competed in what are considered in high school and both of them in college in quote unquote Olympic sports, right?
And I ran track, so I always, and I played basketball, so
Right.
I have
a
vested interest.
Swimming and volleyball for me, regardless.
Yes,
So,
yes.
But I get it. And it's, I'm glad I'm not an accountant at NBC having to figure this out though, because you got a lot to answer for when the checks come due. So, all right, on the other side, we mentioned it, but some football stuff we want to get to. Stick with us. You're listening to Train and Gross.
Train and Gross.
I will not be ignored, Sean Crespin. I will not be ignored. Welcome back, Train and Gross. NFL news to get to here. It's Hall of Fame weekend as we record this. Want to talk about that in a second, though. I'm going off script, and it just came to my brain. And so got to get your thoughts, B-Train, because it's a Texas high school story with kind of an NFL twist to it. Because, Quinn Ewers, I think is how you say his name, he is going to skip his entire senior year of high school. And this I almost brought it up in our last segment when you talked about, where do you draw the line? When you from an individual standpoint.
Sure.
Like he is able. He is able to do this. Like
right.
he can go. He is going from South Lake Carroll High School, which is one of the biggies in Texas.
Yep.
Skipping the senior year.
Yep.
Going to enroll at Ohio State. And he's doing it for two reasons. One, he wants to be able to play at Ohio State, so the risk that goes with playing. But now when he enrolls in Ohio State, he's eligible
to get paid.
NIL.
Off his likeness and image, not
NIL.
for playing football.
No,
at Ohio
the
State.
NIL.
Make sure we get that right.
Right. So he's eligible. High school football in Texas, you can't take advantage of that.
Nope.
Thoughts on that?
It's a slippery slope, Mike, and I understand that you have the right to do it. Only a few are going to be able to really benefit from this. If you are a top 10, per se, in the recruiting class of that particular year, you will be the few that have that opportunity to go early. Now, if I would have had the opportunity to leave the semester early, I would have played my senior season and then left after that fall season and enrolled and gone through spring ball, which would have given me a jump on the other seniors going into that next fall.
But that's
much different than what he's doing. He's actually foregoing his senior year altogether. Like he's reclassifying to be in college. And again, you have the right to do it. I don't necessarily like it, but I love the fact that he has the right to do it. I just want the right to fail.
If this was in place back when you were at Notre Dame, how would a high school senior be received by the football team at Notre Dame or at Ohio State? Or because I think, locker rooms are different. You hear chemistry, but college football locker rooms, there's probably a core theme that makes them all more or less the same. How is he received in South Bend, Indiana, if you're on that football team?
Mike, I had a few teammates that were in my class that actually did do what I just talked about. They enrolled early.
Right.
They were able to finish high school early and enroll in spring ball, and they went through spring training with the team. If you were to reclassify early, I don't think the other guys are going to care so much.
Right.
If you have the ability to help them win games, they're not going to care. They're going to be like, hey, come on in and just make sure you do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Shut up, do your job, and don't get us killed.
Yeah. I just look at this like if I'm, because Ohio State, like as much as I don't like it as a Michigan fan, that's about as big as it gets in college football, right?
Yeah.
And, you got a kid that's saying, I'm going to roll up to Columbus, Ohio, so I can get paid.
Yeah.
That's the reason. And let's boil it down to what it is. To your point, there's nothing wrong with, like, legally he is able to do
absolutely
what he's doing. But I just look at it and say, like, man, because to your point, on the other side of it, if it's to play your senior season, take care of yourself academically,
sure,
and then come in for the second semester senior year, I kind of like that because that says, look, this kid's engaged. He wants to learn. He's going to come in and work out with us.
Yeah.
That's fine because this kid can't do anything.
Right.
And when the season's going on, he could probably just get in the way.
Right.
Like hold a clipboard and stand over there and don't break nothing, to your point.
Epitome of a red shirt. Like he would be the ideal red shirt freshman.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I wonder, I love the way you put it. It's a slippery slope. And there's a lot of because he will be forever remembered, whatever his story is. If he blows up and he's the next best ever,
there's going to be thousands of kids trying.
Oh, by the way, don't forget about him.
Yeah.
And if it goes sideways, they'll be like, man, that poor kid gave up his senior year and everything that goes with that to get a check.
I mean, people always want to remember the stories that went well. They want to remember the Kobe Bryants. They want to remember the Kevin Garnett's.
Yeah.
But for every Kobe and Kevin, there's 6 guys that it didn't work out for. At least.
Yeah.
For that 1 or 2 guys, there's at least 6 guys that it was disastrous for them to try to leave straight from high school. So, again, I love the opportunity.
Yeah.
But from a realistic standpoint, it doesn't always make sense. There's only going to be a few, Mike, that actually have the physical and mental capabilities to be able to truly handle what they're trying to embark on.
Yeah. And I just, the other thing too, you know, being young, because again, I'm guessing this kid's 17 years old probably-ish.
I was 17 when I got to college.
Right. So it's a big jump to move out from, in your case, your family home.
Yeah.
Place you lived your entire life.
And I did it with 4 years of high school. It was still tough.
Right.
So I can only imagine after 3 years.
You know, and this kid's doing that and, you know, going from Texas to Ohio, and there's a lot going on.
If it was going to happen, you know it was going to be a Texas kid.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So
you knew that.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it and wish him the best.
For sure.
Wish him the best, but it's a slippery slope. We'll keep an eye on it. All right, it's Hall of Fame weekend. Last night the game was played. The Cowboys and the Steelers. You watched exactly what, one series?
One series. That's all I could get through, Mike.
Any big takeaways?
Okay, so hang on a second, because the first series lasted all of like 4 plays and then a fumble.
Right.
So was that it? You were out at that point?
I was out because the thing that I saw, and I actually watched series of both teams.
Okay.
The thing that was so apparent about both of these teams in particular, I hate them both. Mm-hmm. Neither team can afford to lose their quarterback because the guys behind them are awful.
Yeah. The best of the group is Mason Rudolph, and that's saying something.
Mason Rudolph was awful. I think Dobbs was probably the best of them all.
Yeah.
And he was the most consistent. But you just can't impress upon them enough how important starting quarterbacks are in the NFL. And your heart has to go out somewhat to the Indianapolis Colts because they've not only lost their quarterback, they've lost their franchise guard.
Yep.
Quentin Nelson, a Notre Dame alum, I mean, this guy, the only guy in NFL history to be first-team All-Pro in his first 3 seasons in the NFL. And they both go out with the same injury. I find that really odd.
I didn't even think of it that way.
Same foot. Same injury.
Yeah, right.
And, I mean, one's a guard and the other one's a quarterback.
Bad cleats.
And the thing that, you know, and they were talking about how they can't bring in Nick Foles because of Carson Wentz and his ego. It's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. This dude hasn't played a freaking down for the Indianapolis Colts. They have absolutely no history with this guy. There is no reason to think that they're going to operate based off of his feelings. The Indianapolis Colts' job and Frank Reich's job is to win football games. It's not to coddle this guy that you brought in who couldn't handle the pressure in Philadelphia, by the way, and to just make everything so rolled out and easy for him. That's not what he's supposed to do. If Nick Foles makes the most sense, then, hey, I'm going out and getting Nick Foles because I'm trying to win football games.
And I wish I would have told you to pull the sound for this. Okay. Frank Reich's comments this week about Nick Foles. Somebody asked him, and just
did you hear Nick Foles?
Well,
comments about Frank Reich.
Yes and yes. But the thing about and somebody, whoever played it was probably Dan Patrick, because that's the only radio show I listened to this week, said, is this tampering? Because he said, they started off with, what about Nick Foles? And he's like,
he plays for Chicago.
We have a quarterback and he plays for Chicago. However, I love Nick Foles. He's a great guy. He knows this system. He's a great chemistry guy. And blah, blah. But we have a quarterback.
And he plays in Chicago.
Yeah.
And Nick Foles was like, hey, I love Frank Reich. Frank Reich, I know him. He knows me. I love him. I was like, if there was a definition of flirting without flirting,
right,
the two of them would have won that. They should have their faces.
Pass a note in sixth period.
Check yes, no, maybe. But if there was inadvertent tampering, those 2 interviews would definitely count as tampering because they could not have said any louder, make this happen.
Well, and going back to your comment about Carson Wentz, too, about, how they're treating him.
They don't owe him anything.
No, they don't owe him a thing, but it goes to reinforce what people were saying when he was on the outs in Philly. Yeah. So the old where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, they don't want to upset him. My man's down for up to 12 weeks. Who gives a crap if you upset him?
5 to 12. And he hadn't taken a snap for you.
Who cares?
Mike, he has no cachet in that locker room whatsoever. He has the same status, if you will, as a rookie.
Yeah.
That's coming in.
Yeah.
That's how much cachet and that's how much, equity he has in that locker room.
Yeah.
Those guys like Darius Leonard, he doesn't have any kind of connection with him just yet because they haven't been in a game yet. They haven't fought together yet. They haven't tried to win a game yet. They've only been in practice against each other. So for them to say, oh, yeah, well, we're going to rally behind Carson Wentz, that is nonsense.
Utter.
Those other 52 guys that are on that roster, they are paid to go out there and win. And they want to have the best players available to help them do that. And if it's not Carson Wentz and Nick Foles fits that description, I'm telling you right now, they want to go get Nick Foles. And they'll be telling Coach Reich, hey, you do what you need to do because we don't care about Carson right now. We care about ourselves and our football history.
Carson Wentz going to Carson Wentz, though, apparently.
Oh, gosh.
Like, you know.
I feel terrible for that kid because
I don't.
Oh, but listen, it's broken leg, diving for the goal line. It's you know what I mean. It's not like it's random weird crap.
That's the least of his concerns. His concerns are, I'm worried about looking over my shoulder because, oh, by the way, when he was on my team before, they put a statue of him up when I was the starting quarterback.
You want to hear Frank Reich talking about the Nick Foles deal? Here you go. Take a listen. Never mind.
No.
Oh, hang on. No, I had the wrong thing up. Here we go. I'll edit this out. Here we go.
This is Carson's team, first of all. I mean, you know, he's our quarterback, and we're so excited about having him, and he knows that. This team knows that. You know, we're when we brought him here for one reason. It wasn't to, he's going to compete, but it wasn't he's going to come in here and lead this football team. I don't mind talking about Nick Foles. I love Nick Foles. I mean, he plays for the Chicago Bears and haven't talked to him, but I think he's a great player. I think he's proven that. I think he's a great teammate. There's nothing about Nick Foles I don't like. I think he's a winner. He's certainly a guy that fits our kind of culture, but he plays for the Chicago Bears. We're glad we got the guys we got, and we're focusing on getting our team better, and I'm excited about that and the players that we have.
The thing I take away from that, he fits our culture. If there was anything you were going to take from that entire riff, he fits our culture because that is the door in. That is the foot. That is the crack right there that, hey, maybe we should look into this. Because the one thing that you don't want to do if you're Frank Reich, you don't want to have the opportunity to make your team better and you don't take it.
Right.
Because then you've got to answer to those Colts fans. And it's one thing, and you got to answer to Jim Irsay. And your job is to win football games. It's not to be the most popular guy in that building. So whatever you got to do, you got to make sure you do your job in making this team competitive.
And it strikes me if any owner is okay with that kind of thing, it's Jim Irsay. Like, he didn't get a call saying, what the hell are you doing, man? What are you saying? What are you doing? Like, the way he runs his team, I think Jim Irsay is okay with everything the way it's playing out. Whether or not they actually go get him or not, we'll wait to be seen. But he's okay with that.
Yeah.
Some owners wouldn't like it.
Yeah, and remember, Jim Irsay is the guy that ran Peyton Manning out of town.
Right.
For Andrew
Well, I'm
Luck.
not saying he's always right, but he likes, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I think for him, whatever's going to get him back to a Super Bowl fastest, I think he's on board for that.
Absolutely. All right. Also, with Hall of Fame game, one series, or the induction comes up this weekend.
There you go.
And who we interested in hearing from? I mean, because you look at it, it's a big class.
It's Peyton. That's an easy answer, I think, right? Peyton.
I want to hear my old team. Well, Peyton's my old teammate, but I want to hear Edgerrin.
Edge.
I want to hear Edge.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's already got the coin phrase from gold teeth to gold jacket.
That's amazing.
That is awesome. Like,
that is amazing.
If he hasn't trademarked that, he better have somebody working on it night and day.
We should make him a T-shirt.
There you go. But, I mean, Edgerrin was actually my teammate twice, once in Indianapolis and here in Arizona. And the one thing that I can say about Edge is if there was ever a can't judge a book by the cover, because when you look at Edgerrin, you don't necessarily think that he's going to be the type of guy that he actually is. Edgerrin is a very well-spoken, very thought-out guy. He plays a persona at times. But when you get him one-on-one, he's very astute. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He's done his research. He loves to read. He's a very educated guy. And I hope that he shows that side at the induction ceremony. I hope that he does. I hope that he doesn't play to the gold teeth and the Miami and everything else that goes with it, because I know a different side of Edgerrin. I know him as a father. I know him as a man. And I think he is so much more fascinating in those areas than he would be as a football player.
The other one, just for selfish reasons, I'm looking at Calvin Johnson. I just want to know how this goes down because he's been asked about it. He's not
mentioning the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, sorry.
But how do you not mention and this is what I'm interested in hearing. I agree, and I know, but I'm interested how you put together that entire speech, and it has to be referenced.
You mentioned people. You mentioned.
I understand that, but it's still going to be really. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be. Oh no, I get it, but I think there's still a message to be sent, and to hear him talk.
Yeah.
He knows it.
Oh.
And it's going to be weaved in there somehow.
Mike, I can't wait. And the thing about it is, the speeches are only supposed to be 4 or 5 minutes.
Oh, they never are. Yeah, they go.
Yeah, I mean, they always go way past. They always go way past. But I think it's only supposed to be like 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
You can figure out a way if you truly want to. You can get 5 minutes of talking out without ever mentioning one specific team.
But you can still send a message.
You can send the message by not mentioning them.
No, I totally agree.
And that's the message I think he wants to send.
I think he wants to send a big message because he didn't play for anybody else.
Nobody.
And
because you talk about edge.
It's crazy.
Like, whatever else he had a few stops. Like,
even
to build
Peyton.
he had his resume.
Even Peyton.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, you're not wrong. It'll be interesting, but
I can't wait.
Yeah, I also think the dynamic between Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones could be interesting because Jerry's going to be there. Jerry.
Well, he's already said he's going into the Ring of Fame. He's already.
So they're mending. They're good.
Jerry Jones actually broke down and went and apologized or made good with Jimmy Johnson.
Okay, good.
Because I don't know, and I think we need to kind of look out for Jerry Jones in that respect because we know he's not the youngest guy in the world.
Right.
And
he likes his Jim Beam or Jack Dan, whatever.
Well, but when you start seeing people do things that are out of character, you start to wonder, like, okay, is there something else going on? Like, I don't want to read into it. I don't want to put anything on him because I don't know. But that seems a complete 180 than what we've seen in the previous years, like recent years.
Yeah.
Because he has been dead set on not putting Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor. Right. And I'm thinking this guy is as responsible for your success as anybody else.
Yep.
Oh, no,
and for
no
him
question.
not to be in the Ring of Honor, that is a direct shot at Jimmy Johnson. And for him to all of a sudden now be going in at the same time that he's going into the National Football League Hall of Fame, it kind of makes you wonder what's going on with Jerry.
Yeah, I mean,
from a physical standpoint.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. But you're not wrong. In terms of the sports world, there isn't anybody that's more influential to Jerry Jones' success than Jimmy Johnson. None.
Speech is coming up this weekend from Canton, Ohio. Real quickly, I know we're only doing football, but before we get out of here, I got to ask a question. I stumbled across this. I didn't know they were doing it. Netflix is doing a special on the Malice in the Palace.
Wow. Oh, really?
And it looks pretty damn good. Like they got some of the names. And the reason I bring it up, and I probably should have done it in the last segment when we talked, or maybe it was early in this segment. I can't remember. But the access to players and the interaction of players and fans and how that all went down in the Palace of Auburn Hills. And I thought it was cool. In one of the promos I saw, they actually showed the implosion because the building no longer stands. They showed the actual implosion of the Palace as part of that segment.
Mike, if Steven Jackson and Metta World Peace are not part of it, I can't watch.
I think
they are the actual story.
That's the only reason it happened. Yeah.
I believe.
And hopefully they were able to track down some of those idiot fans who went down on the floor.
Well, and that's it.
Or the fan that actually threw the bottle or threw the beer in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think yes, because it all goes back to unruly and undisciplined and law-breaking fans, all of it. But
the dude that I've always, I mean, if I could ever ask anybody that was involved in any of that a question, I want to ask the dude, the fan, who wound up, it's over by the bench, and tries to square up with one of the players.
Wasn't he an Asian fella?
I think so.
Yeah.
But the player comes in with the haymaker. I can't remember which player it was.
Jermaine O'Neal.
Was it O'Neal?
I think it was Jermaine
Comes
O'Neal.
in with a haymaker, and his foot slips.
Yep.
If his foot doesn't slip, that fan is
Nighty-night.
not with us
Nighty-night.
anymore.
Nighty-night.
So, oh my God, I've always wanted to ask him, first of all, what made you put yourself in that situation?
So those three
and
guys.
two, what are you thinking when that fist is coming at your face? And if he doesn't slip, forget about it.
I went back to the article that I read, and they are all part of it.
Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson, and Metta World Peace? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, they are all
now
part
I'm
of
interested. Now you got my attention.
And also Reggie Miller, just because.
Oh, I think he was broadcasting, wasn't he?
I think he was, yeah. So, Yeah, it's
When's that supposed to be coming out?
this week, August 10th.
He's also the most famous pacer.
He is.
Let's just
That too.
And he's not afraid to,
speak his mind. Man.
I was going to say bump his gums, but
there you go.
and they say they've got using never before seen footage. Hear from the people who were there the night.
I'm watching it. I'm in.
Yeah.
As long as they got the major characters there, I'm good.
It's so August 10th. There's another show coming out on August 10th. Which one are you more interested in? Hard Knocks with the Cowboys or Malice?
Oh,
in the Palace?
Malice in the Palace.
Yeah?
I'm done with Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
I say you told us that before, yeah.
I mean, come on.
But you get to recap.
We've already seen the Cowboys on Hard Knocks.
I know it's the second time. Them and I think Jacksonville twice or Cincinnati, one of the two have been on it.
Talking about overkill with the Olympics.
Eesh.
Yeah. I think, if I'm at HBO, I got to figure out how do I retool this and make it more relevant.
Yeah.
Does Amazon even still? What was the one the Cardinals did?
All or Nothing.
Do they still do?
Yes,
they still,
every year. Yeah.
Who's this year for the Amazon?
Carolina was the last one, but they don't ever tell you who they're recording
Oh, they do.
throughout
That's
the year.
right. You find out
afterwards.
Which I guess is
The point.
I get maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right.
cheesy.
On the other side, we'll do pump the brakes. You got a dad joke?
I got a dad joke.
Because we've been going on about stuff.
I got you, bro.
You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. And I haven't even because we had so much on our mind. I like the shirt. I like the shirt, but I also like the shirt, if that makes sense.
I got you.
I like the
It's one of the best feeling shirts. Like the material.
It looks like it.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
it's got
It's breathable too. I like it.
It's like the wrapper around a Hershey's Kiss.
Thank you
The
so
letters.
very
I love
much.
it.
You know I am sweet, brother.
I knew that. All right, we'll be right back on Training
Naturally.
Gross. Welcome back, Train and Gross. Give us a follow on Twitter. Check this out, at Train and Gross.
Hey,
Make
keep
it easy.
simple, baby.
Yeah.
I complain a lot about the suits up in the corporate office.
Yeah.
Can't complain about
They
that. one.
complain about that.
Yeah.
They got that one right. Nailed it. At
Nailed
Training Gross
it.
on Twitter.
All
And
right.
they did okay with this music, too.
This
Yeah.
music's not bad. It does okay.
All right, Sean Crespin.
Are you ready to do this?
Did we give the research crew, did we give them some extra water today? It's hot out.
No, they'll
Damn hot.
They'll live.
They'll live. Yeah, they'll be all right.
No Gatorade back
All right. From the player's perspective, because I'm talking to a man who, at one point before becoming an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler, had to fight his way back into the league.
Yep.
From a player's perspective, preseason games are needed in the NFL. Pump the brakes or not?
No, don't pump the brakes. They are needed. Now, the thing that I've always had problem with is you don't need 4.
Okay.
But you do need some preseason games. You do have to get acclimated to getting hit. Because your body, once it stops getting hit in January, February, ideally, you go basically 6 months before you get hit again. So the last thing that you want to do when it actually counts the most for the first time is actually go out there and get hit. Like, you need a little bit of a physical camp. And the only reason I didn't like camp was because I knew it was coming. I knew the soreness and I knew the fatigue was coming. But at the same time, I can't imagine what playing last year was like without having that physicality, the 9-on-7, the goal line period and Oklahoma drill, all these different aspects that made football what it is today. It's hard to imagine it without a physical camp. And so I think it's very necessary. Maybe only 2 games, but you got to have it.
Because there's people, obviously, after last year, and from a outside perspective, sitting on your couch watching, it didn't appear as if there was a major dip in quality of play without
Those
the
first 4 weeks were
preseason
kind of
games.
rough. The first 4 weeks were kind of
So
rough.
people are pushing for it. Like, do we even need these? Do you know? And so I've always thought this, every rep you can get if you're a fringe guy trying to fight for your chance
Yeah.
in the league is a
Yeah.
good rep.
Yeah.
So for me, like, listen, you don't have to watch them if you're a fan. You know what I mean? But from the player's perspective, I can see why there's some value there.
Despite what the big voice guy says at the top of this podcast, I have no basis to draw upon to answer this question.
Is that right?
However, what you've told that story before about how guys that have been in the league for any amount of time dread the start of training camp for exactly what you just said.
Yep.
Right. But I'm there with you, right? Like, you look at it and guys that maybe you never heard of, that fringe guy that makes a name for themselves, that sort of thing. And it'll be interesting to see, because you're exactly right. Last year there was a drop off the first couple weeks, and then the other thing, to your point, what's the right number? Is it 3? Is it 2? It's certainly not 4 anymore. What's the trade-off, though? Because as a player, You can say, I don't want to play 4 preseason games. The owner said, fine, you play 3, but we're going to tack that game on at the end.
Right.
And, so your body still has to go through whatever it goes through as part of that. So I think that's part of a bigger question. But yeah, I think there's some need. So I think you got to find the sweet spot and look for that. And, the guy on the couch, since you brought it up, Sean, we're going to expect better performance week 1, 2, 3 because they do have the preseason games this year.
I had the unique perspective. I actually went into camp as both. I went into camp as the guy that was the former Pro Bowler and all pro and all that kind of stuff and didn't really need the reps. I was also that guy that had just come off the streets in 2001 who needed every single rep that I could possibly get. And it took me getting all of those reps in order to make that team because I was actually 5th deep on the roster as far as defensive ends. They had 10 defensive ends on the roster when I first got to Denver. And how I climbed out of that, and some of the guys had won rings there in Denver that they wound up letting go. It was a fight to the bitter end. I think it went all the way up to the 4th preseason game for me making the cut.
What does a player get more out of? The reps you get in front of coaches in practice or the reps you get in those preseason games?
Oh, you need the preseason games. You got to go be able to make plays when it counts. Practice is one thing, and you definitely have to show and prove in practice, but you've got to go out there and show a capacity to be able to make plays when the lights are nice and bright.
You talk about being an off-the-street free agent in Denver, but then you come here and the story's much different.
Exactly.
What about the chemistry piece that you get? Can you build chemistry in preseason games?
Yes, you can. I think you can build chemistry. I think you can develop a style of play for that particular season. But to say that carries over, now there are certain organizations like the Steelers, like the Ravens, who they've made their mantra, we're a physical football team. We're going to knock you out. We're going to come off the bus and we're going to hit you in the mouth. Like, that's who they think that they are. It doesn't always play out that way, but that's the perception of those particular organizations. And some teams, they feel like they can just out-athlete you. They feel like if they got the best players, they can just go out there and put up 30 in their sleep. So there's always different philosophies, and that's why you have the season, because you get to play it all out and see what happens.
There you go.
So you're a Houston guy.
Yes, I am. Proud Houston guy.
Red's Joey Votto says we need to move on from booing the Astros. Quote, the idea that they were the only ones doing something wrong just baffles me. Pump the brakes.
Woo! You know I am not pumping the brakes on this. How long have I been saying this? I'm not going to get into a big rant. I'm just going to be like, bravo, Joey Votto. Bravo.
I'll do it for you. There you go. Now, Grose.
Is that a bravo?
That was just a standing ovation is what you got.
People aren't going to let it go, though, are they? I mean, what
everybody has other than L.A.
But hang on.
Inflatable garbage cans.
That's not the question here. Don't walk the fence. The question is, people should stop booing the Astros.
No, don't stop booing the Astros.
Okay, so
Pump
then
the
you.
brakes.
But every team gets booed on the road. I mean, what are we talking
Not
about?
like the Astros are getting
But
booed.
booing them because of,
But the Astros are actually getting people that got the foam asterisks, and with the Astros, they're throwing trash cans on
out.
the field.
Yeah.
That stuff needs to stop. Booing them is one thing, but that stuff, that's a bit much.
They said somebody, if you would have had the concession for inflatable garbage cans in Los Angeles this week, you would have been able to retire.
Wow.
Look, baseball purists can take a hike as far as I'm concerned. That's not where I'm coming from. But I think it's good. I think it's healthy. Like, you got to have those villains. You got to have teams that you hate. And if this is why we hate the Astros, so be it. A lot of guys paid the price for what happened in Houston.
But
boo away. Like, if that sells your stadium out and it gives you a reason, boo away.
But I'm so glad another major leaguer came out and said those words, because there are a faction of people that still to this day believe that the Astros were the only team doing things to cheat in the major leagues. And I'm telling you, all of those teams did what the Astros did. They just didn't have as sophisticated of a system.
And they didn't win the World Series.
And they didn't win the World Series.
Yeah,
and by the way,
last and you were cheating. You better try a different method.
And if you're the Dodgers, how about actually hitting the ball in the World Series? It wasn't that the Astros were just knocking the ball out of the park. You couldn't hit the broadside of a barnyard if you're the Dodgers, and that's not our fault. Remember, we won 3 of the 4 games in Chavez Ravine, just for the record.
Who won?
The Astros won.
I picked up where you went, there.
I like that.
Hey, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
because "we" comes out of my mouth all the time too. We're
Uh-huh.
talking about my teams and we.
Hey,
And
Hey, I am a native Houstonian. I go hard for my
So
team.
I missed one. I jumped to the baseball one before I was done with football. I'm going to back up and I want to bring it back local here, football,
All right.
if we can. Did you guys hear Jordan Hicks' comments last Saturday?
No.
Jordan Hicks, linebacker for the Cardinals, said that Steve Keim called him shortly after the draft and told him he would not be able to compete for the starting spot and that Zaven Collins would be the starting linebacker for the Cardinals going into this year.
Yep.
Pump the brakes or not. That is piss poor general manager work there.
Oh, we're not pumping the brakes. That is piss poor general manager, because the thing that, other than quarterback position, competition has been the trademark of the NFL.
Drives everything.
It's what makes guys better.
Thank you.
It's what makes guys go out there and perform at a high level each and every day, even when they don't want to, because everybody except the quarterback is looking over their shoulder and they're wanting to make sure that the guy behind them, one, doesn't get enough reps to unseat them, or that they go out there and prove that they are worthy by their merit on the field. And I think for Jordan Hicks, a guy that has been put in an impossible situation, I look at this and I really believe the Cardinals are going to struggle for this, because you've got no experience in the middle of your defense. You talk about the front part where you've had Chandler Jones request a trade on the down low, and now you've got the middle of your defense with the second-year guy that's still learning how to play linebacker and a rookie who has not played a snap in the NFL and already gotten in a little bit of trouble, so his decision-making has already been in question. It just leaves a lot of things open for this defense to have a lot of trouble in 2021.
I mean, if you can find me one coach that doesn't want competition at it, like if I'm Vance Joseph, I'm going, whoa, hang on a second.
Well,
it's his butt that's on the line. The best damn player is going to be on the field.
If I'm a GM and or a coach at one of the other 31 teams around the NFL, I know the Cardinals will try to deal him, so there's going to be a slippery slope in terms of what you're going to have to give up. But I want this guy right now, because this guy's going to walk.
You need this guy right now.
He's going to walk into whatever locker room he comes to with the biggest chip on his shoulder.
And instant credibility, because he's a veteran.
All
and
of
a team
that.
captain at one point.
The other thing, if you read the whole quote about what he said, I was pissed off.
Yeah.
But he said, I also respected the fact that he told me straight up, and I respected the fact that he told me he was going to honor my trade request. And so that means that, he's keeping a level head. Like, he's not going off going crazy. If I'm another one of the 31 teams, get on the phone, make the best deal you can. Get me this guy in my locker room. I want him.
If you're Steve Keim, even if that is 100% the plan, we just drafted Zaven Collins, we're going to start Zaven Collins. Even if that is the case, why did you go right away, right after the draft? I mean, I don't even think Zaven Collins was done with his interview yet with the media before Steve Keim was talking to the media and saying he's going to start for us next year. And then you apparently call Jordan Hicks within a day and tell him he's not competing. Even if you think that, even if that's your plan, why are you killing competition and already anointing this kid in the media's eyes? You don't even have to do either of those things. Well, and it just mind-boggling.
And to your point about general managership, I think that's the word you use, driving down the trade value of him while you're at it. Because while I said I would go get him if I was with one of the other 31 teams.
If the price is right.
The price isn't going to be that high because I know
you don't want him.
You don't want him, and he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. How's the 7th round conditional sound?
Right.
Done.
Wow.
Right? But I want this guy in my roster. I read that whole article. I liked him beforehand. I love him now.
Well, and I heard, and I listened to it.
I can't say enough good things. Like, he's talking about Zaven Collins.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't understand it myself. Like, to the point. I think we're all on the same page here. Like, he's talking about, he said, good kid, working hard. I think he's got all the right, like, he's saying and doing.
It's not Zaven Collins' fault.
No. But I'm talking about how I would, if this was my workplace.
Yeah.
I know fans always try to do that. If my boss said, just go sit over there in the corner, I'm trying to replace you right now. I'm like, yeah, man. Well, here's your replacement. Be nice to him. No, I'm not going to be nice to him.
It's a weird.
No, I'm not going to be nice.
Right.
True story, 2008. Took a restructured contract,
Okay.
which means pay cut. We talked about that on there.
Yep.
Travis LeBoy was brought in, and they gave him my money. And all through the preseason, I was going with the ones, thinking that I had an actual opportunity to be a starter. Had a pretty decent preseason.
Okay.
But once the regular season started, they came to me and said, well, now he's going to be the starter. Cannot tell you how pissed off I was. But the thing that never, ever suffered was my relationship with Travis. Travis and I became very good friends. We would go out every single week. Before the game, we would spend time at each other's house, and I'd have him on my I had a radio show with the Cardinals at the time, Big Red Rage. He was one of my first guests. It was all love. And Travis LeBoy is actually responsible for said belt that hangs on my wall right now. He brought that from Tennessee. So you can, if you really want to, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with Zaven Collins and Jordan Hicks. But Jordan Hicks is going to be the one that actually determines how this goes. Because if he wants to be a jerk, he can make this so very uncomfortable for everybody in the building. And as a guy that loves pettiness, I'm all for it. But in order for both parties, Jordan Hicks and the Cardinals, to make the most of a very difficult situation, he's going to have to swallow his pride and go out there and be the professional that he knows how to be. And I think if he does that, ultimately good things are going to happen for him because he did it the right way.
Well said. Let's just jump right to one off the wall because we've gone a little long here. We got to get the dad jokes in. According to a new survey, despite the fact that 74% of adults in the U.S. are obese or overweight,
Wow.
40% of Americans think they could hold their own in at least one event at the Summer or Winter Olympics.
Shut it.
So pump the brakes or not, you think there's an event out there you potentially could compete at on that stage.
Right now,
Right now.
pump the brakes.
40% of Americans think they can.
There's no damn way.
Nothing?
There's nothing that I could hold my own and think I could go and be on that medal stand.
Table tennis.
No way.
No, not necessarily win a medal. It just says hold your own. So not embarrass yourself.
No.
Like, to your point, table tennis, like, I was watching. No.
Dude, they
Like,
hit
these
that
guys,
thing.
yeah.
It curves and it's going 100 miles an hour. And they catch like the edge of the table.
Dude, I'd come home with, like, a welt and all my foot. No.
Dude, even the curling, even the archery. No. Those dudes, they practice that stuff for years.
Yeah. We were talking last week about badminton.
That's right. Badminton.
The shuttlecock.
Shuttlecock.
Yeah.
The what?
We're not doing it.
I can't do that.
We're not doing
Can't do
Going
it.
down that road.
But even that, like, that's a backyard game.
No.
Yeah.
And I told you, I was watching these two people play, and I'm like, they're doing stuff
right.
out. No, can't. No.
Even
So
the wrestling. No, I don't want to wrestle. I don't want to get on the ground and wrestle.
put me in the 60% category.
Yeah.
Because, no, I'm not in the 40%.
I
There's
just
nothing
lost.
I could do.
Well, and listen to
And
this.
those 40% are delusional.
They are.
By the way.
Well, it got even more delusional as I read on. The top answers of what people feel they could hold their own in. You want to know what the number one is on here? MMA,
Shut up.
as in mixed
What?
martial arts.
Yeah, okay.
You got those idiots out there who think they...
They wouldn't last 5 seconds.
No.
I've seen professionals get knocked out in 2 seconds, so I know they're not going to last 5
They'd
seconds.
be on one of those Rex Chapman blocks or charges.
Block or
like, man,
charge.
as soon as the dude hit the ground.
What? Who was that guy? Was it Masvidal that knocked the guy out in like one kick? Like the whole thing was over in 3 seconds.
It's like the Tyson Spinks fight when I had to buy the pizza.
Oh,
Basketball, soccer, and swimming were all other.
really?
I got to jump in a pool.
And
Like,
just
I was
swim.
watching, like, the 50-meter
Yeah.
in the pool.
No,
Like, these dudes are going from here to there in, like...
Hey, you telling me though 3 on...
Mike, they're not even breathing.
No.
No,
They don't
just-
even breathe.
Just going. Yeah.
They jump in, they swim to the other side, and don't take a breath.
Yeah.
No. Can't do it. None of it.
Don't have time.
No.
And you know how deep that pool is? Like, you've got cameras looking at their
Oh, it'd
full
be-
body. So
it'd be
if
embarrassing.
you sink, you're going down, brother.
When you go off the blocks and it's a belly flop.
You're going down. You get tired in that pool,
Hey,
you're going down.
You tell
Belly
me.
flop.
You tell me we couldn't go out there and not embarrass ourselves in 3-on-3 hoops.
Oh, we would absolutely get embarrassed.
Embarrassed.
Those are former
No,
professionals
we
out
get
there.
beat. We get beat, but I mean, if
We would get humiliated.
First team to 0 wins.
All right.
Oh, we got that.
You talk about the women's volleyball player, man. Get on the blocks.
I love the way this is
swimming. Get on the blocks
I
in the
love the
speedo.
way this is phrased, though.
no,
Although 74% of adults in the U.S. are obese or overweight, 40% think they can hold their own in the Olympics.
No.
All right.
They're the same one hiding behind the keyboard, giving
Yeah.
athletes grief.
That is today's Pump the Brakes.
Love it.
All right. So now
Here we go.
it's what everybody's been waiting for.
That's right.
We used to call Pump the Brakes the main event.
Yeah,
Since
boy.
been pushed back, it's now the opener. The headliner is where we're getting to now. It's time for dad jokes.
Yeah.
B-Train's going to give us a dad joke. Regardless, he's going to get one of these. Now, if it's a quality dad joke, makes us laugh, going to take it home, tell it to the family, that's what you get. If it's above and beyond and we just have to stop the program because of our laughter, you're going to get one of the applauses. However, there's always that opportunity, we've seen it before, where it just does not land.
All right.
And you're going to get one of those. That's the grading system on dad jokes. Now,
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right, we ready, fellas?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. I tried to come up with a carpentry joke that would work. I think I nailed it, but nobody saw it.
I'll give it to you.
That was a good one.
I'll give it to you.
I like it. You started off good. That would work.
Yeah,
I was like,
ready for that to be the end. I'd have been good with that too.
I'll
Not
give
bad.
him that. I'll give him that.
The new
Thank you.
the
Thank
new
you.
movie
Thank
with
you.
The Rock in it. It's on. It's the Jungle Cruise or
Jungle
whatever.
Cruise, yeah, no.
It looks terrible, but
It-
there's a scene where he's giving a cruise to people.
Right.
And he's just laying out dad joke after dad joke after dad joke after dad.
Are you
joke.
serious?
And it's not. It's that particular scene isn't.
Wow.
terrible. Yeah.
Well, we should trademark this, and that way we can next time haul the Rock into court.
There you go.
How about that?
Sure, I'm sure our lawyers will win that one.
People have actually sent me dad jokes that they're making on soap operas.
Really?
Soap operas. Like The Young and the Restless, there's dad jokes on Young and the Restless.
We've started something.
Trendsetters that we
Yeah.
are.
It's its own pandemic. I mean, it's taking the world over.
Thanks for tuning into this edition of Train and Gross. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter @Train and Gross,
Right.
and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you next time.
We'll holla.